There was a bit of news for KU on Monday. We're recording this on Monday afternoon, and that is that Kansas got a commitment out of the transfer portal from a local player from originally from Raymore, Missouri. Actually played at the same high school as Luke Grimm, and that's Jaden Doss. He started his career at Nebraska. Has been there for a couple of seasons. Entered the transfer portal last week. It was a quick turnaround for him. Obviously, it needed to be a quick turnaround because of the fact that he needs to join a team and get enrolled and everything before the start of fall camp. So he committed to KU on Monday, late morning, early afternoon. It was announced that he committed to KU. It really sounds like, Kevin, it kind of came down to KU and K-State. Obviously, he's a kid from the Kansas City area, so that probably played a factor in it. And Kansas, we didn't really touch on this too much during the spring, but Kansas was interested in finding another receiver in the spring transfer portal. Obviously, they needed to totally rehaul that position room after last season, and they did a good job of doing that in the winter transfer portal. We saw some of those guys in the spring. You had a guy like Bryson Canty, who also joined the team over the summer. Jalen Daniels talked about getting all those receivers together and taking them out to California for some training. But Kansas seemed interested in another wide receiver potentially in the spring. It didn't happen for them, but instead they get Jaden Doss, who was at the time in 2022 a pretty highly recruited player. Like I said, ended up starting his career at Nebraska. Now comes to Kansas. First off, Kevin, tell me a little bit about Jaden Doss as a player and maybe what KU fans can expect from him joining the team at this stage of the preseason before fall camp.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that kind of flirted with a 4-star rating, through the process and finished just shy of that. For those of you who don't know 24/7's ranking system, a 90 and above is a 4-star. He finished as an 89 in that cycle, so certainly right there. But he's a guy that I had a chance to see in person multiple times, Nick, and as did Ryan Wallace, who I'm sure we'll be talking about Jaden on verbal commitment as well. But Jaden's a guy that Ryan actually really liked as a running back, and it's easy to understand why when you see him play, because the second the ball is in this guy's hands, he's electric. He's a terrific return man, was a really good kickoff returner in high school, and he's an after-the-catch guy as a wide receiver. He's very thickly built, 6 foot, probably 210 pounds, is the type of guy that can run through an arm tackle, can make that, catch on a slant route, sort of shake off a corner and get out in the open field and make something happen. He's elusive as well as powerful. I really like this fit, Nick, for a couple reasons. One, I'm a big fan of Jaden Doss's talent. I think he's a really good player. But I think the other part is when you look at what receivers are asked to do in Kansas's offense, and especially Kansas's offense now, that with Lubick coming back, you expect to have a little bit more of that option bite than it did a year ago under Grimes. How many times did we see under Andy Kotelnicki Kansas run the option and a wide receiver wound up being the pitch back, right? Like you would have Devin Neal as sort of the dive back. You would have, Jared Casey blocking up front. And then you'd have Jalen Daniels or Jason Bean out on the edge with the wide receiver being sort of the pitch back. That's something Jaden Doss can do right from the word go. And I think when he comes in, he's going to have some work to do to probably make himself a complete receiver to where you feel, okay, we feel great about this guy being out there, 45, 50 plays a game. But I do think that when you have creative offensive coaches like Kansas has, and you have Jaden Doss's talent and what he does, you can find a little bit of a package in there where he can do some things right away, where he can be out there as a guy that can get pitch relation and act as almost kind of an extra running back there. He's somebody that you can have out there to throw the bubble screen to or something like that and get the ball in his hands. And we just talked about him as a return man. Those jobs are still being battled for. And so he's somebody that could maybe throw his hat into the ring as a kickoff returner. But yeah, this is a receiver group that I think, Nick, from an experience standpoint, doesn't match up with what Kansas had a year ago. Obviously, when you had 3 guys going into their third years as starters, 3 guys who had been in Kansas's system for 3 years and all of that. What it does have, though, is it may have more out-and-out talent. When you look at a guy like Emmanuel Henderson, I'm really high on Canty. We saw Wentz do some really good things in the spring as well. Cam Pickett is another guy that, is sort of that run after catch guy who can catch the ball short and do different things. And so I think this gives you another piece who can, be a weapon this year. But honestly, Nick, after Kansas loses 4 receivers because you're graduating 3 of those transfers and then also Doug Emillion, after you lose those 4 receivers, this is a guy that can kind of be one of your key pieces, in 2026 moving forward too.
Yeah, Jaden Doss has 3 years of eligibility remaining, I believe.
Yeah.
And yeah, you mentioned it. You rattled off some of the guys that KU already has in the fold, and obviously, I think you probably won't find any bigger Emmanuel Henderson fans than the two of us. We're very excited about what he can bring. His explosiveness. You mentioned Levi Wentz. Bryson Canty's a guy that we've heard positive things about. Haven't had a chance to see him yet because he wasn't with the team during the spring, and then Cam Pickett as well. So my question to you about Doss is what are realistic expectations for him this season? Is he a guy that you think can crack the rotation a little bit, make some plays, or is he somebody that you feel like, hey, maybe in 2026 he's one of your stalwart receivers?
Yeah, I think this is going to sound like a cop-out answer, but I think it's really up to Jaden Doss, right? I think that if he comes in and he's a little slow to the take and it takes him a little while to get adjusted, I think he can still have a role this year, whether that's as a return guy, the odd plays here and there. But if he's going to be a very real member of this rotation with some of the other guys they have in there, he needs to hit the ground running, and he needs to hit the ground running from the strength and conditioning standpoint, heading into, the last few weeks and then camp. And he also needs to get in that playbook and become somebody that Kansas is comfortable putting out there. Because I think when we look at this Kansas staff, one of the things that we've seen almost across every position, Nick, I think you'd agree with this, is that they don't always play the best athlete. They play the guy they trust the most out on the field. And if you're a middle linebacker that runs 4.85, but you're in the right place, you're attacking the right gap, your assignment, it's going to be hard to get you off the field. And so I really think that it's up to Jaden Doss how quickly he tackles all that stuff, how quickly he gets up in the playbook and all of those things. The roles are there. There's not anybody back who had a major role on last year's team. And so the reps are there to be had if he can do it, but it's ultimately up to him.
Well, and you and I know probably better than most that nothing is given when it comes to being a member of Lance Leipold's football team. So, and that applies to both Jaden Doss and the receivers KU has, right? I mean, if guys aren't stepping up and doing what they need to do, that could open up more opportunities. And as you mentioned, if Doss hits the ground running and is able to get going, maybe that does open the door for him to get involved. But this is, I think, a really nice addition because of the extra eligibility. Because as you mentioned, you're losing a lot of the guys you brought in this year. Like, you brought in some of those guys to shore up your room, and I think was really good to do so, but not a lot of them were multi-year guys. Here you get a multi-year player that you expect to reign in your program and have a chance to grow into the future as well for Kansas. And by the way, on top of that, all that, it's always nice to beat out K-State because that's kind of what this came down to.
Yeah. Any time you can go head to head with the school out west and come out with the recruiting win, then you want to take it. But yeah, I think the road to playing time at Kansas, I think, is a little bit more clear than it is at Kansas State from a receiver standpoint, at least this year. And so Doss is going to have to earn it, like you said. I mean, we've seen transfers come in. Leipold's first year, they had Mike Nowitzki at Buffalo. They knew what they had there, and he started off down at the bottom of the depth chart and had to work his way up. And I really like that because I think, the players that are in the program feel like, okay, they didn't just bring in somebody to go over the top of me. I have every chance to beat this guy out. And from Doss's standpoint, if he approaches it as, okay, I've got to go earn this thing, there are definitely reps and catches and plays to be had.